All right. Hello, everyone. So we're live. Thank you for joining us today. I see there's a few people on already. Today's webinar. Hello, everyone. So we're live. Let me. Thank you for joining us. So today's webinar is going to be about selecting graduate programs, and we'll be presenting based off of like the positions that people in the board or the programs that people in the board are on. So each person on our board, some of us are in the same type of graduate programs in counseling or in psychology, but we have a pretty diverse like mix of people who are on the board who are in different graduate programs. So we'll have them speak on what program they're in and explain a little bit about their program, why they chose to go into the field that they chose to go into, and a little bit about what they see themselves doing with their degree after they graduate. As we're doing that, you all can ask questions in the chat and we'll get to answering those. One of the things that I want to say is we're going to have a separate webinar, which will be next month, about applying for graduate programs, and that one will get like super in detail into like once you've chosen the program you're going to apply to or that you're looking into, like what process should you go through to reach out to mentors or advisors and putting in the application. So today we're just focusing on the different fields of psychology so people can get questions answered about what the different fields are. My name is Robina, and I'm the communications chair, and I'll let Erica start us off talking about her program.
Okay, great. That is off mute. Hi, everyone. My name is Erica. I'm currently the membership chair. I've been a membership chair since about 2017. So I just finished up my first year as a PhD student. Yay. I'm actually earning my PhD in behavioral and community sciences at the University of South Florida. It seems to be a bit off compared to what you think of the whole gamut of psychology and also behavioral health. My background is in counseling. I earned my master's of science in counseling from Bethune-Cookman University, Hill Wildcats, and I'm currently more so on the behavioral track of things. So my program is very interdisciplinary. I'm currently in the mental health law and policy department with the specialization in cultural competency and health disparities. My research interests are really understanding disparities and as well as barriers to care and understanding the intersection between physical disparities and mental disparities, predominantly for African American communities. So when you hear the term behavioral and community sciences, it is very broad. But what's unique about my program is that we have people with all types of backgrounds. We have individuals who want to go into more or less the policy aspect of behavioral and mental health care. We have individuals who are all about community-based participatory research, which is what my advisor specializes in addition to minority like geriatric psychiatric care. So for me, my ultimate career goal is to get my PhD naturally. And then because I love research, I am actually interested in pursuing a postdoc position. Since my field is very diverse, my master's allows me to practice as a master's level clinician. So I'm able to do individual and group psychotherapy while practicing underneath a licensed professional until I become licensed myself. So that background coupled with my PhD will pretty much set me on a trajectory to do just about anything that you could possibly imagine when it comes to the realm of psychology. So if I decided I wanted to go into private practice full time, I will have the credentialing to do so. If I decided I wanted to go into academia, since there is a lack of representation in that field, I'm more prepared to do so. But if I also chose to pursue a full-time research career, my university has plenty of resources that will allow me to do so. So it's kind of sort of why I chose the field. I knew that I didn't want to pursue a PhD in either clinical psychology or counseling psychology, because once I reached my master's level, I wanted to veer more into the behavioral health aspect of things to really understand how to impact communities and to understand disparities within at-risk populations. So that's about why I chose my field. And once I do become licensed, since that is my goal by the time I graduate, to become a licensed mental health counselor, in addition to earning my PhD, that will give me both the clinical aspect, the research aspect, and then also allow me the chance to gain some of that academia experience that is needed if going into academia is something that I would like to pursue. So that's a bit about me and a bit about the program. So if you all have any questions or if you're interested in learning a little bit more about the community community aspect because it's behavioral and community sciences. So I know those terms can be a bit vague and unfamiliar if you're not used to hearing that. Just hold on to your questions. You can write them down because we will have a question and answering session later on.
Thank you, Erica. Next, we will have Sinclair.
Okay. Hi, everyone. As Rabina said, my name is Sinclair. Currently, I am the Southern Graduate Regional Representative on the National Student Circle Board. So basically, if you're not familiar with my position, I just serve as the liaison for students, members, and just graduate students and undergraduate students who are either into psychology or just, maybe the field or just wanting to be involved with the Black professional organization in the Southern region. And again, serving as a liaison between them and the national board and just being able to communicate a lot of different concerns and advocate for them in that position. Currently, I'm a second-year master's student at Florida A&M University. I'm in the community psychology program and actually going to be graduating this weekend, so that's pretty exciting. But so as far as what community psychology is, because I definitely get this question every now and then when I tell people what it is I'm studying, the most simplest way I can think to describe it, and as I typically describe it, is just thinking about really community psychology is really looking at, I guess, these larger systems and institutions and just really like how they're affecting groups of people and communities, not only at the individual level, but also at the group level and organizational level. So really looking at these interplays between systems and like the consequences, of course, in terms of mental and behavioral health, but definitely things around like cultural policy comes up. And different intervention techniques and what have you. And definitely, I guess, that community piece of it and really looking at some of these larger issues as opposed to just thinking about individualized care and thinking about things like primary prevention is really what attracted me to community psychology, because I was really having a lot of questions around just basically, just thinking about, being Black people and being Black in America, a lot of the concerns and issues that we face. I definitely wanted to be able to, navigate that in terms of psychology. And then my program specifically, Family's program, is African centered. So a lot of our framework, we learn a lot about, a lot of these Black and African thinkers, individuals who have either were part of founding, ABSI, or maybe served on the board at some point. So ABSI, FAMU definitely have a lot of close ties and just the history there. So that's really why I chose the field and definitely why I even chose FAMU's program in particular. So if you are someone who's interested in community psychology, especially with a focus on African-centered paradigms and, Black communities, then I definitely would say look into our program. And then, as Erica stated, we're going to have a Q&A. So any specific questions you may have related to that, definitely feel free to, I guess, get them going. And then I will definitely answer them at the end. As far as what I'm planning to do after graduation, so planning to work as a therapist at the master's level and, work to getting licensed. I also want to teach at the university level to undergraduates and specifically teach like a Black psychology course. And I want to bring that to my alma mater because we didn't have that there. So teaching, doing therapy and also doing a lot of community-based work because I haven't been doing that as much as I would like to. So really wanting to be really hands-on and being able to just really apply a lot of the things that I've read about and talked about in school for these last 6 years between my bachelor's and master's, and really just, really just hit the ground running in terms of application of a lot of these things. So yeah, that's pretty much it about me and my program and current interests and all that.
Thank you, Sinclair. Next, we'll have Evan.
Cool, what's going on? My name is Evan August, and I'm currently a third year at Fordham University's clinical psychology doctoral program, and I'm specializing in forensics. I believe we'll have someone else talking specifically about clinical psychology, so I'll speak a little bit more towards the forensic specialization. So forensic psychology is anything that kind of falls into the intersection of psychology and law, whether that be psychology and policing or incarceration or juvenile justice. And so specifically at Fordham University, I'm engaged in research that looks at trauma in the juvenile justice portion of the criminal justice setting. What kind of attracted me towards that? So I kind of had an opposite trajectory almost of Erica, in that my background was mainly in health disparity and behavioral research. And after a few years of doing that, I found more of the questions I was more curious about were related to forensic and law, in particular how incarceration was traumatizing adolescents and adults and families, whether directly or vicariously. So Fordham University has a forensic department, has 2 faculty members, so I applied. And since coming here, I've been engaged in research projects related to specifically understanding how the juvenile justice system can better assess for trauma broadly and cultural trauma specifically. And in particular, I have a project with the Georgia Department of Juvenile Justice analyzing how racial microaggressions and racial discrimination impacts symptoms of trauma among the adolescents that they see in their youth detention facilities. So in terms of what I'd want to do, afterwards, this kind of some of the projects I've been talking about are what kind of drew me to this specialization in particular. I like the aspect of taking research and applying it more broadly, beyond just having it in a journal, having research that can influence and impact policy. So I love that aspect of the forensic psychology specialization. So I hope to take some of my research background and apply it towards maybe either bettering or unpacking what the criminal justice system, how it's impacting communities, how it's impacting families, how it's impacting youth, and hopefully changing those for the better. And beyond that, I do like the aspect that with the PhD, you're able to engage in academia. So you're able to write, you're able to treat people individually as well. So I feel like the full degree allows me a lot of breadth to engage, with these problems at multiple levels. Yeah, and if you have any questions in particular, like we said, we have the Q&A at the end. Yeah.
Thanks, Evan. Next, we'll have Tamisha.
Hello, everybody. My name is Tamisha Hinton. I'm currently a first-year graduate student in the doctoral program, Combined Counseling, Clinical, and School Psychology program here in the University of California, Santa Barbara. I got my undergraduate and my master's at FAMU, so I did my undergraduate degree in psychology with a minor in biology, and I also did the master's community psychology program at FAMU, so shout out to Robina and everybody at FAMU and the community psychology program. So I am currently in school psychology, and I have I'm gonna keep it short, but as a school psychologist, you get to assist students at all levels. Just a little bit of background about what school psychology is about. It's assisting students at all levels to help plan, intervene, and acquire services needed for them to succeed academically. And even though the focus is on academic success and achievement and making sure they have the resources and tools that they need to be successful academically, it also encompasses doing those psychoeducational assessments, which includes like the WISC and the WJ, different IQ testing, different things like that, but also social emotional assessments as well to see, if students may be struggling with anxiety, and having them work on coping strategies to help them be successful and learn strategies that won't, so their learning is not impeded upon. Yeah, so also, you know, that consists of doing counseling with students, behavior supports, and even outreach. So as a school psychologist, I feel like it's a pretty flexible job if you are working at a school, because you may do a range of things, and it just kind of depends on where you are. I'm still learning a lot about the field, but from what I understand right now, you fulfill any role that the school district may need you to serve in. So whether that's, you know, mostly counseling focus, or doing mostly assessments, or helping the principal come up with different programs to deal with bullying prevention or interventions, different stuff like that. So that's what I enjoy about it. I love that it's multifaceted, and no one school psychologist may have the same role as the next, which can be kind of confusing. I still feel like it's a transformative field, and it's a lot happening within the field, and it's pretty new too. And it's not a lot of us minorities in this field in particular, so we have to make sure we in there with the kids and know what's going on with our Black and brown students. So the reason why I came into this field is because I always knew I was interested in kind of psychology. And again, my story can be a little long, so I'm gonna keep it brief. But I came into the field because before I was getting ready to get my bachelor's degree, I ended up applying for an internship, a summer fellowship, and it was in education. And here, actually at UC Santa Barbara in 2020, whatever, a few years ago. So I came and I was able to get exposed to research that was primarily in education. So that got me interested and got my gears grinding. And my grandmother was also an educator, so I always kind of had a passion for education. I kept trying to figure out how I could bridge my passion for mental health and counseling and stuff like that with education. And I found that in school psychology as I learned more about it. And I feel like being a school psychologist, you're in a unique position to learn about the system of education and really be able to play a role in making changes, because we know, we need more support in that area to make sure our students are succeeding and have the supports that they need and the representation that they need as well. So I guess I can wrap it up there. If you have any questions for me, let me know. I'm happy to be here, excited to see all these faces. Thank you. I'm done.
Thanks, Tamisha. Also, Brittany just texted me, but I realized you made me an honorary rattler for the night. So I was like, hey. Next, we'll have Steven. Go ahead. Unmute yourself for us.
Hey, can you guys hear me? Yes? No? Yeah? Cool. So I'm Stephen Jones. I'm a fourth year graduate student at Rutgers University. I'm in the social psychology program. I originally came into the program looking to do work with one mentor who does work on human decision making. So let me take a step back. So social psychology is basically the study of how human beings interact with other human beings, whether it's groups, whether it's just individuals, and like how do human beings think and why do they do certain things, right? So I came into this program looking to do work on human decision making, focusing on facilitating pro-social health behaviors such as vaccinations, and then other personal behaviors such as exercise and self-care, and basically just looking at how do we push and pull people towards doing those behaviors. But my mentor left, I have a new mentor, and ever since I came into the program, I've worked with my specifically how blacks and whites perceive certain things. So for example, some of my more recent work is looking at the perceptions of cronyism, which is just like granting economic favors to friends and family, and just like how do whites and blacks, or black people, us, and white people, them, perceive that, and is it a good thing, is it a bad thing, just like that. So I'm in my fourth year, just finished my qualification exams. I'm waiting to hear back what my grades are for that, and then hopefully I can get to propose my dissertation So some of my future goals. So one of the things I realized when I first came here is that mentorship is very important to me. So I've definitely mentored a few undergrad students who've gone on to one PhD program and one master's program, which is super cool. And then I also found that I really like to teach. So whether I go on into academia, I wouldn't mind if it's an R1, like everyone wants an R1 school, but I wouldn't mind like going back to like a liberal arts school, like my old HBCU, and just teaching there. And if the economy sucks when I graduate, then I wouldn't mind going into industry because I really like stats and I really like programming. So that'd be one of the things I would do. And then if you guys have any other questions, because I know like I'm like one of the few social psychologists in AB Sci, so or potential social psychologists. So if there's any one of you that would like to do that or have questions or need advice or mentorship, I'm here for you guys. So yeah, hopefully that was short.
So I'm next. My name is Robina. I'm the communications chair for the student circle of AB Sci, and I'm studying counseling psychology. I'm in a doctoral program at the University of Missouri. Counseling psychology, basically what it is, it almost sounds, it can sound similar to clinical psychology in some ways. So when the second Erica who's presenting talks about it, then we'll probably like get into talking about some of the differences. But generally, counseling psychology is a specialty that encompasses like research and applied work. So the research looks like pretty much anything that has to do with individuals as it comes to how they may do in terms of like being diagnosed or mental health issues or just psychological health in general. And then the applied work would look like us doing one-on-one counseling, so therapy with individuals. Even like as I'm in school, I'm a clinician in training, so the practicum sites that I work at, I'm doing counseling. Sometimes I get chances to do testing like Tamisha does with school psych. And the main thing for me that kind of like set counseling psychology apart and why I chose it is because there's an emphasis on social justice and multiculturalism in most counseling psychology programs, and particularly ours. And then the subfields could look like vocational or career development, just counseling in general. So getting a general or like a wide scope of knowledge on counseling different individuals. And then there's also can be a sports psychology component to it in some programs. And then the other thing is looking at prevention or interventions that can be used in terms of mental health for different individuals. So I decided to go into counseling psychology and chose the program that I chose because of the strong social justice emphasis, a lot of the emphasis on the context, so like nature and nurture being something that influences individuals' mental health, and then tends to be more of a focus on the human and the human being like living and moving through life rather than focusing on like the diagnosis or prescribing what's going wrong. Yeah, so less prescriptive, more preventative. And then the other thing is my plans after graduation. So look a little bit different from people who other individuals and other counseling psychology programs or my program, whereas a lot of people tend to funnel into research or academia or doing counseling and therapy work. I've actually, as I've been in the program, gotten an interest in consulting, and part of it looks a little bit like organizational consulting, but I want to be able to use the skills that I've learned to do consulting with different teams at different companies, so like international companies that work with individuals who are trying to improve the mental health of different populations, specifically populations that have been historically marginalized. So immigrant populations, refugees, and other individuals of African descent within the diaspora. So trying to consult with those programs so they can create interventions that are culturally appropriate for those individuals. I think that is the main thing for myself, and then I'll let you all ask questions after that. After me is Bianca.
Hey everybody, so my name is Bianca Owens. I am a second year health psychology PhD student at Virginia Commonwealth University in Richmond, Virginia. And so I guess just like at its core, health psychology focuses on like biopsychosocial, behavioral, cultural, and other factors that may influence a person's health and illness. And so I think typically when people hear health psychology, they think of individuals that work primarily in like the healthcare settings, which traditionally health psychology was developed for that purpose. But more so now, individuals are looking at health psychology through different perspectives. So for me, the reason that I decided to go into the health psychology field is primarily based off of an advisor that I had at FAM. So I got my master's in community psychology from Florida A&M University. And the advisor that I had there, she was doing a lot of great work looking at the long-term effects of stress on the physical health of African Americans. And I got really into that work. And I really wanted to expand that and looking at the ethnic racial socialization of people of African descent and how that impacts the mental and physical health of African beings. And so just kind of from that, I was talking to people in different areas and different fields, and the topics that I was most interested in kind of tended to fall under health psychology. So I looked into it, and I found a program that I was really interested in, and I just kind of went that route. I will say when I initially came into the program, my focus was more on ethnic racial socialization, again, and how that impacts the mental and physical health of people of African descent. But in being in the program, my research has kind of taken a turn into a different direction. So now my research primarily focuses on, one, looking at how mental health is conceptualized among African people. So looking at how depression and anxiety is presented in Black women in particular, and how that deviates from what is typically diagnosed as being depression and diagnosed as being anxiety. And then the second part of what I'm interested in looking at is like the sexual health aspect of the well-being of people of African descent. So I do a lot of sexual health work, specifically HIV prevention stuff. And I'm really into understanding the socialization process between mothers and daughters. And so, yeah, that's what my research primarily focuses on. The reason, another reason that I chose health psychology is because of the many directions you can go into. So you can go into a lot of policy work with health psych. You can go into working in a hospital setting if you want to. You can do intervention and prevention stuff. You can do program evaluation consulting stuff. So the number of career possibilities is kind of endless. So that's another reason why I went into it. But for me specifically, I am exploring other options, but right now my primary end goal is to go into academia, teaching at the university level. I also want to open up a center that focuses on sexual health of individuals within the community, but also college students.
Thank you, Bianca. Next we'll have Erica. So you can go ahead and unmute yourself, Erica.
Okay. Hello, everyone. My name is Erica Ramirez Solis, and I am a fifth-year clinical psychology PhD student at Alliant International University in Los Angeles. I am currently the Western graduate rep, and I am currently completing a practicum at Harbor UCLA in the neuropsychology department. And I will be starting an internship at the Southern Arizona VA August, so I'm very excited about that. Right now, the reason why I chose clinical psychology is because initially I just wanted to get a degree in psychology, and when I got to the university, I was informed that you're not going to do anything with just a degree in psychology. You're going to have to go to grad school. me being a first generation college student, I didn't know anything. So I decided to become a part of the McNair Scholars Program, and its basic purpose was to teach students how to do research and to get into graduate school. So it was required that we applied to at least 12 graduate schools, and I got into graduate school. So that's how I got here. I chose clinical psychology because I decided to take my first psychology class when I was working as a nurse at the VA, and I really enjoyed it. And I felt like I could do more with the veterans. So using psychology to go back to the VA, I saw it as my way of giving back to the veteran community for all the things that they do, sacrificing their lives for us. And once I took that first psychology course, I was like, I really enjoy this. Like, this is not just a job; it's a career. It's something that I could get up every morning and not have a problem going to work every day, which is always a plus. So I also wanted to focus on trauma. That is my goal, to focus on individual trauma and experiences that are traumatic for people, to promote resiliency and perseverance. Although I just read an article that stated that it might not be so good that we are pushing for resiliency in African American little girls, but that goes beyond what I need to talk about right now. I chose what else do I need to talk about? My plan after graduate school. So my plan is to go to the VA. And so far I'm on the right track. I also want to teach. Oh, wait a minute. What is clinical psychology? So clinical psychology integrates science, theory, and clinical knowledge to help people understand what they're going through, to try to alleviate any distress that they may be having, and to promote personal development in people who are experiencing mental health issues. When I say theory, there are a lot of different ways that a person can go when they are interacting with individuals. Personally, for me, I like CBT, which is cognitive behavioral therapy, and I also like family systems, because these two things are promoting learning how to fix your own problems. I don't want to be a therapist who someone is going to see for life. I want you to be able to come to me, learn how to deal with life, and take the tools that you gain from me and implement them into any situation that you may have to move through life more peacefully. I plan to become a clinician at the VA. I plan to also teach at a university. I chose to get a PhD because I was informed that with a PsyD, you may be limited in the places where you can go as far as working in a university. And because I only had two Black professors that I knew of on my campus, maybe three on my campus, I want to take my degree back to my undergraduate campus and be the face for some little Black girl or little Black boy that may have not had that much encouragement or I want to be a mentor. I want to mentor our Black students and so that they can see that there are people that look like them out there in the world doing things. And because those three people that I knew on campus really propelled me to where I am today. So I also want to open up a private practice at some point so that I can provide affordable mental health to ethnic minorities. And that is it.
Thank you, Erica. And you're like right at the end of the road too, because you're talking about to go to internship. So that's a really helpful for you, like us, to have that perspective as well. Next, we'll have Felicia. Go ahead and unmute yourself, Felicia.
I'm sorry. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay. Greetings, everyone. Hi, my name is Felicia, and I am the Student Circle Chair. I hope everyone's doing well. And my field is IO psychology, known as industrial organizational psychology. And I kind of want to start off by why I chose IO because probably give a little bit of perspective about me. But so getting my master's at George Washington University, I was in organizational sciences, which is basically the business management part of IO. And I had an opportunity to go into a company and interview women leaders and just kind of get their perspective of how being a woman of color in the organization and just their personal experiences. So I was like, wow. So I've worked before since I was like 16. I was like, someone's actually coming in and listening to people of color's experiences and doing something with that. And I was like, what is this? You know, what is this field? And then industrial organizational psychology came up. So I kind of switched gears for my master's, which was in the business aspect, and went more on the psychological perspective, which is IO. So basically taking psychological theories that we all use in all the arenas and bringing them to the workplace. So we're looking at it from a macro perspective, per se. The main goal is the company, maybe not the individual. We want the individual to be happy because it'll make the company more money because it'll increase engagement and lessen employee burnout. However, the main goal in IO is the organization as a whole. My research interest is something Rubina spoke about, multicultural individuals, so employees in the workplace, multiracial, more than one race. And I'm interested and curious on how they manage all their racial identities in the workplace in different social settings, in terms of team dynamics, being in a leadership position, just different social settings. How do you frame switch? How do you monitor yourself? And what impact does that have, not only on your self-concept, but as in the organization? And my second research interest that kind of goes with that's aligned with it is the work and home balance with your racial identities. So after all that 8 hours a day, monitoring yourself, maybe having emotional exhaustion or whatever, how does that impact when you go home? So do you segment your racial identities? Are they integrated? Is there a change? So I'm kind of interested in the experiences with multiracial employees. That's how I got into that. And also I got into it because, to be honest, someone in undergrad, one of my professors who's an AB Sci, Dr. Dockett, she's the one that told me this was the arena that paid the most too. So I got to be real with you on that. But besides that, I ended up loving it. I love this area. I love the experiences. I love how you can go into consulting. You'll never know what you'll see. You're kind of going in as the expert. And IO is very research-based heavy in terms of research methods. So I'm really interested in that. I love mixed methods. Qualitative is my expertise per se. So I like how I'm able to go in, kind of look into a problem and then see something totally different emerge. I think it's rich substance that comes from that. So after I'm ending my 4th year, so I'm going into my 5th, I would like to go into the applied setting, hopefully stay in consulting. I would like to be an adjunct professor per se, maybe teach here and there, but my main objective would be to stay in an applied setting as a consultant. So that's all. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Felicia. All right, so now that everybody has introduced themselves and talked a little bit about their field, we're going to take questions. So just share your questions that you have in the chat box, and I'll let them know what it is. Right now, since we don't have any questions, I just have a general one of, so we're in different years. Some people are in master's programs, some people are in PhD programs. So I'm wondering, for individuals who didn't already speak about why they transitioned or chose to transition from master's and continue on to PhD, can you talk a little bit about what kind of made the difference for you, like why you decided to continue on and get a PhD if you were in a master's program?
So
I want to take off their mic. Oh no, go ahead, girl. Go ahead.
No, go ahead, sis.
All right.
Oh.
Erica.
All right, so that actually is a question that I received often. I knew similar, I'm not sure, was that you, Erica, other Erica, who's probably reading my mind, where it's like you go in and you get your bachelor's in psychology and then you come to find out it's like, oh my goodness, I need to get another degree. So my experience was a little bit different. So straight out of my bachelor's program, I actually landed a job as a clinical research coordinator for, I think it was like a K-22 NIH grant. So that's where I really became exposed to research. But my mentor is phenomenal. She said, I know, Erica, you're in your master's program, but I truly do need you to push forward because I always said I wanted to be a doctor. I just didn't know what type of doctor I wanted to be. At first, I thought I wanted to be a medical doctor. Come to find out, I didn't really enjoy sciences that much. And so I decided to look into other avenues. That transition from a master's program to a PhD program is definitely real. Like what they say about PhD programs is true. It is a different type of beast. The workload it can be intimidating if you're not fully prepared for it. As a first generation college student, college grad, doctoral, whatever you name it, that's me. It's kind of a unique perspective because you come in being used to writing a lot. You come in being used to learn how to critical think. But when you have all that coupled together along with the political nature that some doctoral programs have, it can be a bit intimidating. But I knew that I wanted to get my PhD specifically because I knew that's the terminal degree if I ever wanted to apply for a job and that was a box, I'll be able to check it off. But then also because I love the process of learning and I love being able to get as much information out of a program as possible so that I can have a culmination of different experiences, different background knowledge to be able to really impact the change I would need to do. And then also, it's just I'm really not doing for the title, so to say, or the credentials. It's more or less, it gives me the additional training, the advanced training that I would need at the terminal degree level to really be able to go out there and impact the change I know that I'm capable of doing. But sometimes you just need additional training in order to do so. So that was my reasoning for it. And yeah, I just love school. Unfortunately, I'm that person that gets super excited when I see back to school specials in the fall and I think about buying school supplies. So I just enjoy the process of learning so much that I decided to embark on getting one final degree.
For me, were we moving on? 'Cause- okay. Well, for me, I definitely agree with everything that she just said. And for me, like, I felt like when I graduated with my bachelor's degree, I still wasn't sure. Like, I could have applied and did education as a PhD, but I just felt that I wasn't ready because I hadn't had those research experiences and how much that helps you, like when you have those research experiences and experiences that you can take with you into a doctoral program, especially, when you haven't been exposed to stuff like that often, it's very helpful. And I feel like doing my master's degree, because they don't play at FAMU, like, we was doing a lot of stuff, a lot of reading, a lot of work. And, I remember the professors were just like, we prepare you all for a PhD program. And because I love my school anyway, I wanted to stay and get that experience. And I knew I would be ready for it. And I feel like I was. So I just think also people considering like your own journey and what you're ready for, because, this is a tough journey. And she already kind of spoke to it. But if you don't have a foundation, it can be very difficult to like be successful, as successful as you would like in a doctoral program. So I think it's about like really, really considering what your career goals are, because you don't have to get a PhD. You can always do practice and everything like that. But I do feel like a PhD gives you more flexibility and it gives you more leeway to impose yourself in different environments, situations, and it also gives you more of a voice as a minority. So I think that's important for me, an important takeaway that I got from this experience.
Yeah, so for me, kind of going off of what Tamisha was saying, the flexibility with having a PhD is something that really interested me. So I did my bachelor's and my master's at FAM. And after I completed my master's, I decided to take a gap year because I was still kind of stuck in the mindset that I wanted to go into clinical work. Like I knew in my heart of hearts, I did not want to go into clinical work, but I think a lot of times, especially when it comes to psychology, a lot of people push clinical counseling. And I knew that that really wasn't what I wanted to do. And even then I had an idea that I wanted to go into health psych, but I just wasn't confident enough in it to commit the next 4 to 5 years of my life to a program. So I decided to take gap year and I worked at the state, and I quickly realized that with a master's degree and not a lot of experience, I would have to start from the bottom and work my way up. And after a few months of doing that, I said, yeah, so I'm going to have to go back and get that PhD. And I said, okay, this is the area I'm going to go into. And I just kind of did it from there, but also trying to figure out what my end goal was going to be, because I knew that depending on what I wanted to do after I got my PhD, that was going to determine what area I wanted to go in, or if I needed to go get a PhD. I think a lot of times people think that you have to have these letters behind your name in order to do certain things, when that's just not the case. You don't necessarily have to have a PhD to do certain things. And if you don't have to get one, then like Erica was saying previously, the things that you have to go through in a PhD program, it's not worth just being called doctor. You know, you can kind of have your best friends call you doctor and just kind of get that feeling, but it's a lot of work that goes into it and behind it. So to spend the next 4, 5, 6 years of your life committing to this goal, for me, I wanted to be really clear on what I wanted to do and what I was going to use it for, and how I was going to spend that time. So that's kind of what made me move from just having a master's to deciding, okay, it's time to go ahead and get a PhD.
Thank you, Bianca. And thank you each for answering that question, kind of to just give people like an idea of course, it's your experience, but some of what the reasons for you all switching or like carrying on were. So being able to have that experience of like working and then deciding you want to go back. So for myself, and I think Erica, our S as well, like we came straight from undergrad into a PhD program. So we may have a different perspective on that. So anyone else want to answer this question before we move on to the next one? Okay, the next question is, what do you wish you knew during undergrad that could have helped you to better plan your career trajectory?
Hello, it's Felicia. Am I unmuted? Can you hear me? Okay. I would say just in general, I don't know if this is necessarily for me, but if I was an undergrad again, I would definitely make sure I kind of had a broad perspective in psychology, doctoral programs as a whole, because sometimes we see or just see clinical or counseling and we just think that's all that's out there. So I would definitely make sure I know all the arenas in terms of PhDs that are out there if I'm interested in pursuing that. And once I do that, I would also see, do I need a PhD to do this? Some of who I got my master's with, my cohort, none of them went forward to get their doctoral program. And they're all consulting and doing just fine. I don't know if they want to do academia, but still, you can stop sometimes in some fields and just have a master's. So you want to make sure, like, because that's a long time, 5 to 6 years is a commitment to go to a doctoral program if you're kind of not for sure, is that what I need? Is this where I want to go? And 2 is, once you do realize, I would say, like, if you want to get a master's or PhD, what in that field should I do now to prep? So for instance, I know in IO, we look very big on your stats grades. Like if anything below, I think a B+ or something of that nature, when we get the PhD applications, we're not even gonna look at you. That's big because we know you're gonna do stats 1 through 4, and then you go to research methods 1 through 2. We know you're gonna go because IO is so focused on that. So I would say like neuroscience may be sciences. I don't know. I'm just saying that because I'm not in that field, but I'm just saying, just kind of know what can you do where you're at if you're a junior or sophomore or whatnot. What classes can you focus on more, or do you need to take on an additional class that might make you look good at that, even if it's on community psych or whatnot. Just kind of know what you can do to kind of make you a candidate, since it's extremely hard to get in a master's or a PhD program. And lastly, I would get into organizations like this, Association of Black Psychologists, where you can go to these type of atmospheres and environments where you're able to see PhD students, pick their brain, see how it is. Is this something that you want to do for 5 years? You know, instead of just jumping. You hear about it, but it's a different monkey when you're in it. So that's all I have.
I guess I can say understanding how much dedication you need to have to this type of program. Can y'all see me? Okay. How much dedication you need to have to this type of program. Me particularly, I'm at a professional school. It's quite different from undergrad. With undergrad, you can pick your classes, time, days, whatever. For this school, there was a set schedule. Nothing could be changed. Either you're going to do it or you're going to get kicked out of the program. So understanding the type of program that you're getting into and understanding that you have to be ready to dedicate your life to it and do the work regardless, and be ready for whatever balls may be thrown at you in the moment, because you have to be flexible. Also, I would say have an understanding of how important research is in a PhD program. Like, I was a McNair scholar and it focused on research, but I didn't understand how much it would be implemented into my PhD program. Like, I learned so much in this program that I didn't know. And there were people who came into the program with a whole lot more knowledge already on, like, already in research labs, already had their CV. I didn't even know what a CV was. Already had their CV built up with research that they had done, labs that they had joined, and had made all these different connections. It wasn't until the end of my second year that I learned about the research labs on my campus and got into one and started to build my CV up, because that's important if you're going to go to a internship and a postdoc. They want to see what type of research that you're doing. Also, one of the biggest things for me, I believe, is understanding that not all schools take the GRE. And I spent a lot of money on the GRE, and my school didn't even take the GRE. So that would have been a good heads up to know that don't spend your money on that, because we don't even need that. So just do a lot of research on the programs that you're looking for, and look for people who are doing, if you're going for a PhD, because PhD focuses on research and PsyDs focus on clinical work. If you're going into a PhD program, do your research. Find somebody who is doing research that is, interesting to you or related to something that you want to do. And like Felicia said, network and connect with these people so that you can already have this experience under your belt.
Thank you.
Can I say one more thing just to piggyback off of Erica? I should have said that. I don't even know why I didn't. Research lab, research lab, research lab. Get in a research lab. Research lab, research lab. Get in a lab. I don't care if you're a freshman or get in the lab. Even if it's out of your arena, get in the lab. This just so you can see what it is. Because sometimes you can get in. I've been in the clinical lab. I was in a counseling lab, and I knew this is not what I want to do. So until you're kind of in there just working on a project, even if it's a literature review, if you're helping just clean up data, you'll at least be able to feel or get a sense, can I see myself doing this? And also it's experience on your CV. Please get in a research lab. I don't care if it's an hour a day or hour a week, but definitely want that, because no program, we all can attest to this, will want someone who has no research experience on their CV, period. That's all.
And can I add one thing to what Felicia said? I know that not all universities have equal resources, of course. So there your university might not have like these very structured research labs. But there are ways around that. So, and when I was an undergrad, we didn't have research labs. So in order for me to get that research experience, I went to a professor and I just kind of told him that I'm looking to get research experience. Do you have a master's student that you're working with who might be working on their thesis that I can help with? And he said, yeah, I have the student who just started data collection and, I can see if he needs help. And I kind of got linked that way. So it wasn't a formal like research lab that, we have like at the institute that I'm at, but it was a way for me to kind of get my foot in the door to get research experience, like Felicia said, to put those things on my CV to show that, while I might not have formally been a part of a research lab, like I kind of took the initiative and I got this research experience in another way. So there are ways around it if your university doesn't have like formal research labs, and like talking to people who are where you want to be someday can also provide you different contexts and ways to kind of get around some of those standards that are out there in the field if your university might not have those same resources.
And I think everybody kind of already alluded to the importance of kind of seeking mentorship, but I think that's one important aspect as well. Like as an undergrad, I think sometimes mentorship, people have this idea like I'm close to my mentor. We go out to lunch. No, I mean sometimes you just need somebody who knows the field, who can inform you moving forward, so you don't make the mistake. If you know you want to pursue a doctoral degree, you can start early instead of like finishing your bachelor's and then like, oh, I'll just do a master's when you really want to go for a PhD. So it can save you some steps as well. So I think everybody kind of already alluded to that already, but just reaching out to people, and then you don't have to love them, but you just learn from them is such an important part of the process.
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
My thing that I was going to say is pretty much like what you just said, Tamisha, is like talking to people. So when I was going through undergrad at Maryland, they have a really good psychology program. I was taking the classes and stuff, but I didn't do what people said of like, oh, reach out to your TAs or like, be buddies with your professor and asking for help. Like I didn't really do any of that until like the end of my junior year when I was like, oh shoot, like I should be figuring out what I'm supposed to be doing. So I would just say talking to people like in class. I can think back to times when I did hear interesting things come up in different psychology classes, I should have reached out and asked the professor something about that and told them like I'm interested in that. And that could have been a research opportunity right there. But I just didn't really talk to my professors until I needed them, which I should have been talking before. And like, you don't, like she was saying, you don't have to like them. They don't have to be like your sole mentor. It's just different people who are linking you, and they have all this information and they love talking about what they do. And most of them are willing to just answer questions or like help you out. So I would just say just talking, so people know what you want to do. And if something comes up, they can like reach out to you and help you out. Anyone else want to respond to this one? Anything that could have helped you better plan your career trajectory? Felicia, did you want to add something? You're muted.
I was just going to add with Bianca made such a really good point. I forgot about that because I actually wasn't. Can you see me? I don't even know. Oh, okay. I wasn't actually in a lab because I wasn't at a school that had a lab either. However, I would also encourage what Bianca said, going to your professor, and they're definitely a good source. And also I went to a school close to me. So I was at University District of Columbia, and I went to University of Maryland, College Park, and I reached out to a PhD student there, which was, they were in the social psychology, IO psychology lab. They have like a community lab. So I just reached out, and that's how I found, it's a long story, but that's how kind of where I'm at with AB-Sci, because of the PhD students there are actually AB-Sci. They were on the board at that time. So that's kind of, I was just going to say, like, if it's not at your school, you can also go around and just if you email a student, you'll be surprised. As you all know, if you probably got an email, once you get to this dissertation stage, you're probably like, oh, you're willing to clean data or whatever, you're always willing to help because you know the struggle. So that's all.
I got one too. So one thing I was thinking also, in addition to everything everybody said, was I wish I'd known that there's like no rush to it, if that makes sense. Like when I came out of undergrad, I was under the assumption that I had to get this done, go through this process as soon as possible, like get my experience in maybe in a year or two, hop right into the program so I could graduate, hopefully before 30 and then be working. But I find in my experience, some of the people that have taken longer who have come out of undergrad and worked in various fields and really been like deliberate about their career trajectory and following their interests and getting different experiences tend to come to the PhD with more grounded, with more perspective, and it kind of better informs that the work that they do, such that when they come out of the process, even though it might be a little bit later, they're better equipped to go into the field and kind of take charge of their own career. So that's the one thing I would say is that I wish I'd known that there's no rush to it. If you want to take 5 years, 6 years, 7 years, I think in my cohort there's like a difference of almost 10 years between the youngest and the oldest person. Yeah, so there's really no rush to it.
Thank you. Yeah, I think that's great advice, especially since I came straight out of undergrad too. Like I would say, you don't have to feel rushed. Next question, and at any point, y'all can go back to any of the questions that have been asked. But the next question is, what barriers have you experienced specifically related to your race within your field?
I guess take that one too, real quick. So one of the things that I've experienced so far in forensic psychology in particular is not, well, this is, I think this applies to probably everybody on this webinar, but it's not very diverse, such that in seeking mentorship, it's tough to find people within forensic psychology that are kind of engaging in research that's informed by Black psychologists or people that have done work in Black psychology. And it'll be very frustrating to go to conferences and see presentations where people are predominantly studying, Black and brown people that are not kind of like informed by the available literature that there is on the various cultural considerations one might want to make, or the various models of identity that are out there. They purely look at it as a point of like maybe just like racial disparity, and that's as far as their analysis goes. That's kind of like I think like a necessary evil almost, if you will, about going into the field, because it's not diverse. And for the next, I don't see that changing in the next few years where people who are listening might be applying. But what I would say is it could be beneficial to get a mentor that's as open to learning from you as you are from them, so that you can bring your own personal research and your own expertise around these issues to the research and not have it shut down at the onset. So I'll say that's like been particularly, I guess, a difficulty in how I've found to address that.
Anyone else?
Yeah, get me off the big screen.
This is Felicia. I said something. I'm not gonna be the only one talking, y'all. 70 of us out here. But okay, so in IO, I guess I would say not only do I come across because of my racial identity, because I'm a woman, and a lot of times in big corporations, you're coming in and you're talking to a bunch of white guys, and you're coming in telling them how they should run their business. So right there, it's an ego barrier that you're going to have to deal with. That's consistent kind of across the board with different organizations I go to. But I can flip that because I've also been at all minority organizations and coming in telling us what to do. And it's somebody who looks like us. We're not also keen on taking direction or instructions from other people that look like us. So I kind of get it from both ends, but majority when it's dealing with organizations that's, white men kind of not wanting to hear you. So you have to manipulate the situation, kind of get another white guy on your research team or somebody who can help consult. But it's still also this feeling, even though you're intelligent, you're a fourth year, you're about to graduate, you got all this going on, but it's just kind of like this stereotype lingering over your head when you go into these rooms, in terms of how they view you and feeling like you slipped between the cracks, which I was told before, in terms of being able to get a PhD and my color or whatnot. So I think the barrier is kind of keeping your self-esteem high and confidence and knowing you deserve where you're at. And this is just speaking in terms of IO, and your stuff, and just push forward and handle like that.
Thank you, Felicia. I think as Evan was saying about it, like we've all kind of talked about these things and experiencing them, and especially like being in certain fields or being young, but then also the intersection of like our race too, that does play a big part into feeling like she was saying, ego kind of gets in the way of other people trusting our judgment when it comes to being a clinician, or I think I don't know what other terms other fields use, but I know in counseling and clinical psychology, and sometimes even like health, it's like clinician or counselor or whatever position you're in. So does anyone else want to speak to it from their perspective, either being in the workforce before you came back, or even just being like at your schools?
I have a general comment, I guess. I think it's important also being in these programs to kind of stick with what you're interested in, and because sometimes it can feel like, oh, if no one's doing research about African American people or who, youth of color, whoever, whatever population that you actually care about, it can feel like, you want to stick with that, and we want to make sure we're giving back in that way and making sure we see ourselves in the literature and that we're doing work that makes the lives of our people better. But sometimes it can feel like you being swayed, and it's like, oh, well, let's not focus on the Black issue or the brown issue, whoever. And I think it's important to be confident and solid with the fact that you care about this population and commit to that population, because you may not be interested in all the other different populations, and that's okay, because sometimes I think professors may not realize it, but they send a message that that's not a priority, that's not a focus, and that can be problematic, and it can feel it can feel not so good, feeling like the work that you want to do is not valued. So I think being strong and solid and recognizing that you may be the only one that's doing the work in your institution or wherever you are, if it's on a campus, if it's at a job or whatever. So just keeping that in mind and knowing that it's important work to be done, and not allowing people to push you away from your passion and your focus and commitment to who you want to study. I think that's really important, because it happens a lot, and sometimes I feel pressured, like, oh, we have to care about all the kids. I care about all the kids, but I definitely know that it's not enough research going into the population that I care about and the people that I know need services and supports and community and education and all those different barriers. So just throwing that message out there,
I feel like I was like vigorously shaking my head as you were talking, because yes, like I talked about that with other Black scholars, of like not being pushed away from your passion, and okay, you can be interested in like all the kids, but this is actually what the kids that I want to focus on and tell it from my perspective, because it is going to be more accurate. Anyone else with that?
Yeah, hey, Robina, it's Erica. I think, like, to me, she hit the nail on the head 'cause that is so important. And actually, coming into my PhD program, my first course, so it was kind of traumatizing at first. When we have to give our introductions, I unapologetically say that I'm a minority mental health and health disparities researcher who has a primary interest in understanding the intersection between physical and mental health, specifically anxiety and depression for Black men and women. And being that I am one of three people in my one of three African American people in my program, it's kind of interesting because there's not, I think I only have one professor who's of color and she's biracial. So it's comfortable in that position and being and standing strong in that because my professor tries to push back on my topic saying that, oh, you need to be more inclusive, which is true. Don't get me wrong, that is important. However, this is what my research interest is, and here's the literature that supports why it's important. And so after a while of me standing firm in that, she kind of sort of took a breath and was like, okay, I understand what you're saying, but don't take that first initial pushback and change your topic. If that's what you're truly interested in and you know what the gaps are and how you can specifically fill them, push forward because there'll be plenty of people that support you and the people that don't, they'll just fall by the wayside. So be unapologetically who you are. And yeah, when in doubt, always bring out the Carfax, always bring out the literature to back up what you're saying. Because in this realm, that is what people use. They use literature to debate their position through and through. So don't be afraid to do the same. Sorry, that was my roommate.
I can kind of piggyback on this because I didn't have this dilemma with someone trying to change what I wanted to do for my research. My dissertation is focusing on police brutality, and I created a survey that's assessing emotional reactions to police brutality and how these types of vicarious experiences seen in the media affect the community. And at the time of finding a dissertation advisor, most of the people that I was planning to choose to put on my committee, they kind of transition out of the school, should I say. And so it was like, so there are no more minorities on campus who may, assist me. Like, what am I going to do? Like, but I did find one person who is a minority. She's not Black, she's Asian. But I found someone who was interested in my research. I don't want you to change it. I want you to advise me. And I'm already like a strong personality. I'm coming in school in my mid-30s with 3 kids. Like, you're not gonna change like what I'm gonna do. So I'm gonna find somebody who's gonna either be on board or I'm gonna figure it out. I was already prepared to like step outside of the school to find somebody who could advise me, but I just happened to find like a really great person who was interested in minority concerns, who just really pushed me and was a great mentor to me, is a great mentor to me. So outside of people that look like us, there's a possibility that there are people on your campus who will still support you and support what you do. So I agree. Don't waver on the things that you want to do. Just find a way around it.
Yeah. Since you guys are trying to force me to speak, this is Steven again. I definitely agree to try to not change or do certain things, but I also want to emphasize that if you are in a situation where there's a lot of pushback, and especially if you're at the PWI, the goal of you being that PhD program is to get the heck out of that PhD program. As my mentor would say, Dr. Benson Cook. But it's like, figure out a way to be you, but also be in that system that's actually not welcoming of your ideas, right? So like if it takes you, if you're so stuck on trying to get like your idea and your like group, and it's like, nah, the more important thing would be like, yo, get this PhD, help our people, right? It doesn't pay to get stuck in the program. And I've seen people stuck in their programs because of certain things that we're trying to fight for, even if you do want to fight for it, that's cool. And I'm not trying to like dissuade you. It's just like definitely find a mentor who can help you navigate that fight. Because they're looking for ways to block you, right? So if you have a mentor that could be like, yo, there's a robot coming, here's what you should do about it, that's great. But if you don't have that mentor, if you don't have that guidance, you have to be very careful, because in these programs, they might not kick you out of the program, but it could make you take 10 years to finish your program, especially if you're at a PWI. Work, so it's cool. Anyways, yeah. Get a mentor who can advise you and how the heck get the heck out of there. Because remember, like, you want the PhD, they have to give it to you, right? It's not like you can just go take the PhD. So it's like, if you are riding in someone else's car and they're taking you somewhere and you're yelling at them and you're screaming at them, they can just kick you off to the side of the road and be like, yo, you know what? You can stay at this rest stop for the next 2 years. And you don't want that to happen, because your goal is for us is to like learn how these people think and then help our community with that knowledge. And if you don't get out of there, you can't help us, right? So, yeah. Anyways, sorry, not to be negative, but yeah.
I want to piggyback on that a little bit, because I totally agree. I've been hearing for the last 5 years that a good dissertation is a done dissertation. You want to get up out of school. You don't want to be here for any longer than you have to be. And I am that. I want to change the world. I was in that. I want to change the world. So I want my research to be beneficial. And my initial project, I wanted to look at military sexual trauma. I wanted to be focused on that. And I was told flat out, the government ain't going to let you do that. So I don't know how far you're going to get with that on this campus, because the government might shut that down. So I ended up changing that fairly quickly, even before I even got to the dissertation part of the program. But I still found something that was relevant to my life and that was important to me. But I knew to let that topic go so that I could get up out of school.
Thank you. Thank you for keeping it real too. Someone said that Rutgers internet is trying to hold you back from speaking the truth, Steve. Let's see. The question. Does anyone else want to speak to that?
Not necessarily on that, but just a general tip about, I guess, not feeling like pressure to, if you are someone who's wanting to pursue any type of graduate degree, like not getting sucked into that pressure of like, I need to become a professor, I need to become a researcher. Psychology is a very vast field. Like, there's so much that you can do with it that is not stuck or limited to academia and being a tenured professor, being this researcher, et cetera, whatever it is. Because I know me and my program, when I came into my program knowing that, or really wanting that, I wanted to take a break. I'm like, I don't want to do a doctoral program afterwards. Like, I'm tired of school, et cetera, et cetera. And I think along the way, I got caught up at certain points just from people telling me like, oh, like you should be applying to doctoral programs. Like you would do so amazing, et cetera, et cetera. And really just like, and I guess to that point and just to what I'm saying in general, just don't also confuse your capability of doing something with your desire to do it, especially I think as it relates to doctoral programs, because, you know, you could definitely be fully capable of doing it and completing successfully. But I know for me, even like thinking about going into programs right after my master's, I knew that my first year I probably would not be genuinely happy, and I just didn't think it was worth my mental health, my emotional health, if it was something that I was not wanting to do. So really just, I guess, taking a long look at your options and just really what it is you truly want for yourself, because it is a commitment. It's going to be emotional sacrifice, financial sacrifice, mental, all that. So like you really need to want it, and if you don't want it, that's fine. But I guess just not feeling like you have to go a certain path due to other people's maybe assumptions or expectations of you, or just what you may see in terms of thinking about just programming and what people seem to, I guess they glamorize that aspect. Yeah, just doing your research and just really following, your true passions and your pursuance in terms of that process. But that's all.
So we'll take a couple more questions. One of them being like questions that some students get often. So for those of you on here who went to HBCUs for undergrad or for a master's program and are now at a PWI or predominantly white institution, can you share about what your experience was like with the transition from an HBCU to a PWI?
Oh, all right. Because Rutgers is trying to hold me back, so I'll just talk really fast. It was my first year was terrible. I will be real about that. It was I used to go home very angry because my program is very, we're the most diverse university in the country, and we're the most supportive, blah, blah, blah. And yet you don't see any Black people in my program. At the time, I was the only Black male in my program, but yet they were just always touting this like hypocritical stance on diversity. And then also being alone in the program and dealing with all these people who are, at least in my school, very upper class, very Northeastern, very privileged, and not recognizing their privilege, and just the things that they would say in class and the things how they would act to certain situations and the news and blah blah blah. And then it was just very stressful. So I feel like one important aspect for people of color is to like self-care and finding communities that can support you while you're at these PWIs. Because like coming from HBCUs, like everyone's Black, you have all these groups, so you can get your frats, your sororities, yada yada yada. But when you come here, it's like you're by yourself a little bit. So definitely self-care, find that thing that can like keep you sane in the program, because it is stressful. So yeah.
And it's kind of similar to something that Steven said, but more specifically, I was thinking about in terms of self-care. Also, if you are someone, I guess, who's cause I did a PWI to HBCU, so my perspective is a bit different, but I still want some aspects, but a little bit different. But my main point, what I wanted to share was just in general, I think as a graduate student, being intentional about finding community outside of academia can be really helpful and important. Because I know for myself, like there really became a point where I'm like, I don't want to be around people who are in my program. I don't want to do nothing that's school related. Like I'm trying to just not just really disassociate, because these programs are very intensive and they're very specific to, tailored to what it is your research interest in your career, that you spend a lot of your time, whether it's in your department, with your cohort, with your mentor, et cetera, et cetera. So I think really having things that are not associated with the university at all, like having a hobby outside of school, or having a group or having friends who maybe are in a different field from you, can be really helpful, because it really breaks up the I guess just the typical day-to-day, or just how monotonous things can become sometimes, and really can just help just make you feel a little bit, just be a breather, and I guess a breath of fresh air. So I know for me personally, like having friends who weren't, like in my programming, that I can hang out with or could talk to and call, was really helpful, especially in those days, again, where I may feel overwhelmed or irritable, stressed out, whatever the case may be.
Hello, this is Felicia. I think that's a really good idea. I think the main point was self-care. And also some things, staying with me, my lab was only person of color in my lab. So that was, but a lot of people were doing diversity research, like what really set me off. It was like everybody was doing love diversity, but nobody was of color. I was never asked to be on any of the projects, but I was only the person of color. That was just very frustrating, and you felt isolated. But I also felt like you have to, if you're in a lab, you're in a PhD program where you're able to have your own section or little cubby hole per se, where your computer is, kind of putting things around you that's familiar. Like my parents were by me. I've had pictures of my sisters, my brother, just kind of making, because you're going to spend a lot of time at your computer in your lab if you have that type of, if you're at the university or even at home, or I don't know where you would do that at, but majority of schools do have labs and they give you a computer or whatnot. But just kind of making your area where you're at feel like home and putting things familiar around you. Those are just like little things that helped me when I was there most of the time, my first and second year.
Thank you, Felicia.
Oh, hey, okay, yeah, so I'm over here thinking about this question. I get asked that a lot. So I started off at a PWI, and then I was just so burnt out with the microaggressions that I knew that I needed to be around people who looked like me and could understand the level of support that I would need to kind of sort of recharge my intellect. So I went to HBCU, and then I knew that I wanted to get a PhD. But then, kind of sort of with that understanding, I knew that I wanted to go to an R1 that was producing research at a very high caliber. So when I was very strategic in looking for my current institution. I not only like browsed through their diversity statement, I looked at how many faculty of color they had. Within the different departments of different colleges, I knew that I would probably interact. I specifically searched out my mentor, not only because her research interests are similar to mine, but because she's also a woman of color, so that we could have that similarity. But then also something that I found to be really helppful was that because my program has like that behavioral mental health aspect, being able to have honest conversations with members of my cohort in my program because we had to build that rapport and build that trust. So it's like, sure, we come from different backgrounds, and sure, whenever people ask like where I came from, I always tell them I came from HBCU very proudly. But then when we kind of sort of present our research interests, not only stating this is what I'm interested in, but also having that be open to that dialogue for, okay, you're genuinely curious about why I'm interested in this field. So this is a teachable moment for both you and I. So we kind of sort of reach across the aisle to kind of sort of bridge like that, I guess at the professional gap if need be. But then it's also important to maintain those relationships with your mentors, right? So my mentors at Cookman, I still reach out to them when I need help trying to navigate the political environment that can come with the doctoral program. I make sure I reach out to my advisors, but then I also make sure that I take a break. When I'm not on campus, I am not on campus. I enjoy being around my cohort members, but I let them know that, hey, if you see me at Black Student Union or a Black Faculty and Staff Association, or if you see me with my service organization that is all about the promotion of African American women's well-being, that is my niche. That is where I'm comfortable. So I appreciate if you respected that time. And so being very honest with my cohort members and expressing them how I would like to be supported. Thankfully enough, they are understanding of that and they don't have like this presumption or bias to carry around. But it's important to maintain connections with the mentors that you have had because they've been through it more than likely and they can show you how to navigate through that process. They can give you tips on how to truly recharge yourself and like effectively engage in self-care, walk you through how to journal out your emotions and just get you prepared to finish on, because chugging through a doctoral program is just that. You will be exhausted at the end, but it's not the end all be all. Don't allow yourself to become burnt out. Just go to the comfort of your support system. But it's important to identify that healthy support system for you. So that's something I would just add on to the conversation.
Thank y'all so much. And just to be cautious of time, to respect you all's time, there is one last question that I'll just kind of address, but not fully answer it. I kind of answered it in the chat already. So someone asked about giving senior undergraduate students insight into what they should look for in programs or questions that they should think about asking as future master students. And so with this one, I think generally like what I'll say before I like give like a brief thing is that next month, so May 21st, is that what it is? Yeah, May 21st at 8:30 p.m. Eastern Time, Drs. Queener and Dr. Robertson will be leading out a webinar, and Brittany will be on that as well. Or she's helping to prepare it as well. So during that webinar, I'll be focused on like the graduate school application process, and we'll get into some of the things that they should look out for. But generally, I would say as like a blanket tip is to reach out to individuals at the institutions that you're at or other institutions, people that you feel comfortable with. So any of us having conversations about like what you're interested in, that mentor piece that we kind of talked about. So it may be hard for some of us to like reach out to people and kind of keep that going, but even asking like little questions here and there. So I would just say generally just talking to individuals who are in positions that you're looking to get into. And it doesn't have to be like someone who's a PhD, but it could be someone who could be like someone's shoulders that you could lean on or go to, and they could point you in another direction. But for more like specific tips and stuff, next month that webinar will focus specifically on that. So to close us out, I just want to, since we have this panel of beautiful graduate students who are doing so many different things and such great things at their institutions, and being Black, I want to just ask you all to close off with one thing that you would tell students about how to practice self-love and like just positive mental health. Obviously being the counseling psychology person on the panel, like something that you would tell them about how to get through a program. And then we'll just have each person say one thing and we'll close off that way.
Hey everyone. So I think that something that has really helped me is to truly seek out elder guidance, whether it be from your JEGNA, because we do offer that within AB-Side Student Circle. So you can actually reach out to individuals who are at different phases of their career and academic trajectory. So I definitely seek out like guidance from people, from elders, whether it be someone in the same like similar career path as me, whether it be someone like who's gone through a similar like academic program. So that's how I practice self-care, in addition to like deep reflection and also journaling, because if I can't like fully act out of my emotions, I just write them all out until I come to the conclusion that fits best for me and helps me be centered and grounded.
I can go next. I'm trying to think. This one's a simple one, but like sleep. Like I've been a person who I'm just like, I'm not sacrificing my sleep. I'm not pulling 12 hours, like no coffee. I can't do it. I don't function well when I don't have any type of sleep. I'm not productive. I'm very irritable. So I'm really trying to be intentional. And then because of that, I try to be intentional about how I manage my time. So doing what you can, but also not feeling guilty about taking breaks. Like sometimes they're necessary. Often, honestly, they're necessary. And I think there's definitely within graduate culture, like it's like, oh my God, I can't take a break. Like I feel like I see all the time on Twitter, people like, feel bad about taking a step to do whatever, just to take a break and basically stepping away from their work. But it's necessary, and I definitely encourage like people to do that. So take that nap when you need to. If you need to go to bed at 10 o'clock at night, do it. Just wake up early next morning. Yeah.
I guess I could. Oh, whoever that was, you can go.
Okay. I think I would say just maintain relationships outside of graduate school. I believe like my first 2 or 3 years, I don't know if I talked to my family. It was like, I don't have time. I got this work to do. Like I can't hang out with nobody. Like, and I really got burned out. it was a point where I was like, did I even talk to my children today? Like, I'm in the same house, but I don't think they saw me today. I was stuck in this room all day, so just taking out time to just be with family and do things outside of the program, because people are still alive even though you're in grad school, and they still want to see you even though you're trying to become whatever it is that you're trying to become. They don't necessarily understand the hard work that you're putting in, so it's going to be up to you to kind of like maintain some of those relationships.
And I can piggyback off that. I was trying to figure out so many things in my mind, but I would just say really choose yourself sometimes, because I transferred from a different program into this program, and I basically had a panic attack one day, and I was on the floor and I felt like I couldn't breathe, and I just realized, hold on, like I'm not doing this to myself. I'm not continuing to put my body through this, my mind through this. So I just feel like there are requirements that we have, and we all here for a reason. We all trying to do our best, but don't be afraid to ask for extra time on assignments or extra time on the research project or assignment that you were given. Like, do the program, don't let the program do you. I don't know how else to phrase it, but I'm just kind of like, do what you have to do what you can. I hope that didn't. Sorry, y'all. I couldn't come up with another way to say it, but just really advocate for yourself is what I'm saying. Like, advocate for yourself, because nobody else is going to worry about your mental health or your physical health, or I know people with medical problems and just all kind of things and mental health problems as a result of academics, and it's like, really, why are we really doing this to ourselves? So just really advocate for yourself, choose you, engage in self-care, whatever that may mean for you. That's all I have to say.
Yeah, I'm trying to laugh.
Okay, so my tip would be to be kind to yourself. So the same advice that you would give to a close friend who's going through a program, who is struggling, the same way you would be kind, gentle, encouraging to them, be that for yourself. Be kind to yourself. It is a process. It is going to take time. It's going to take time for you to acclimate to your new normal. So yeah, just be kind to yourself.
Yo, can y'all hear me? I think you can. I was just gonna add, like, find a hobby, bro. Like, and sisters. Like, you'd be surprised what people do here. Some people are like dancing. Some people are teaching certain classes. I do photography. The PhD program isn't your whole life, right? So just find something else that's like not your research, not your work, that will also like give you fulfillment. Like, train for a marathon, like whatever it is. Like, don't forget that inner child that you had before you came into the program. So like, don't let them beat that out of you. You know what I'm saying? So whatever you found fun to do before you got into the program, continue to do it. You know what I mean? Because it's such, you have the time. Like, it always seems like there's not enough time, but like when you do take time out for yourself, you find the time to do the other work. And when you don't take time out for yourself, that's when you actually don't have enough time, because you're so stressed out and you're so burnt out. So definitely try to find something that will like give you the extra time and that boost that you need. Anyways.
I could do one. So I think mine would be similar to what everybody else is saying. I think, kind of like what we talked about in the beginning, everybody tends to approach the programs and approach their work from like a deeply personal place. Like, people are aspiring to do research that they think can impact their communities, impact their families, impact people close to them. And because of that, just getting to it, you're drawing from like a deeply personal, well of energy. And I guess my thing would be like to conserve energy. You don't need to approach every single thing you do with that level of passion, if that makes sense. I had somebody the first year tell me that the most important thing to get through everything is to be, you have to be good at a lot of things, not great at everything. So it's okay if you turn in a paper it's not the best paper, but it gets you by. It's okay if you maybe don't, solve a particular client's all of their mental health problems within like a few sessions. You don't have to be the best therapist. You just have to be good enough at everything just to get by, so that you can conserve your energy. And kind of like everybody else is saying, like, don't feel guilty about taking that time, because being in the program is like being perpetually on overtime. Like everything you do is extra. So any time you take, whether that be, watching a movie, taking up a hobby, is time like well deserved to be taken off. So that would be my thing, I guess, like conserve your energy and don't feel guilty. In fact, like combat that guilt, that feeling of guilt throughout the program, so that you could, find time to take care of yourself.
Yeah, and don't let these white people let you feel like you're in some kind of race. All right, because they come to you and be like, "Hey, how you doing with your masters? Did you propose yet?" Da, 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 da. Like, ignore them, because like their PhD has nothing to do with your PhD. So like, and they'll lie. Like, oh my God, I haven't started yet. I haven't started that paper yet. Wrong. They started it 2 weeks ago, and they're just trying to play with you. So like, don't worry about them. You know what I'm saying? It's not a race. You good. All right.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Stephen, you getting all your last tips out.
Can you stop with this dance?
Yeah, I would just say mine is what they all said, because those are tips that sometimes you all remind me and I still need to be using. And then just self-compassion. Like if I don't do well on something, or if I procrastinate, or if I'm not like reminding myself to stop comparing myself to other people's journeys, like just reminding myself to be compassionate with myself and to be kind to myself, like Bianca said, is a really big thing, so that I don't end up like inflicting stress on myself when I should be the person who's like rooting for myself, in addition to you all and my family, and just staying connected to those people that like feed into you and support you. I think that all I have. Anyone else have anything? All right. Well, if y'all have questions, you can always email me at the communications email, and y'all probably seen it on the flyer. I'll put it in the group chat, or not group chat, in the YouTube stream chat. And then you all can send questions there. But we hope to see you next month again for the preparing for, or like the graduate application process, and get more questions answered. Thanks, y'all. Thanks.